Yeah, welcome everybody to Moment of the Truth. Today, I will be your host, Meilin Obinata, speaking with the first president of Trader Joe's United, Jamie Edwards, whom Trader Joe's recently terminated. So we're going to learn all about life after Trader Joe's and everything else that has happened between this time we're having this conversation and the last time we had the pleasure of speaking with Jamie Edwards. So, yeah, Jamie, what's it been like in the last I think it's like an 18-month period or so.
It's been an interesting time, we've had a lot of weird stuff go down in the store. I don't remember exactly which things we talked about before, but there's been a lot more acts of retaliation, obviously including me getting fired, but also some denied raises, also an assortment of different things management has claimed I've done, everything from trying to physically attack my manager to stealing from the store. So it's been a crazy time.
Wow.
Definitely not things I expected getting into organizing.
So just to kind of give context to listeners, Jamie was on the organizing committee of the Hadley, Massachusetts Trader Joe's and subsequently became the president of Trader Joe's United, which is an independent union of Trader Joe's workers. And that union, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, is active in, I believe, about a dozen cities or dozen stores across the United States. So the
I think six right now.
oh, six right now. Okay.
Yeah, half a dozen.
Okay, half a dozen. The denied raises and other things you were mentioning, are those specific to the Hadley location or you were talking about nationwide?
No, I would say the experience most people have had is that there's retaliation happening in any place there's organizing happening.
Mm-hmm.
It may vary place to place, but it's always happening. And in places where there's not organizing happening, there's a lot of shady things that are going on. But definitely once the organizing starts, they really will focus on those who are doing the organizing. I've lost, even before getting fired, I lost my past, I think, three raises in a row. And they will either find ways of they'll find ways of giving you write-ups for things that others don't get write-ups for, and if they can't do that, they'll just make things up. I don't want to jump ahead if you want to talk about some of those stories later, but yeah, it's been a crazy time.
Well,
Obviously, before I think it was already after Steve had gotten fired, so they've showed that they're willing to fire people, they're willing to do whatever to prevent people from organizing there.
was Steve the one that had there was like a tool or something that he that was in the store or was he
Yeah.
the okay, yeah, because it's like what,
So
it's bad to like have stuff in the store. That's okay. Anyway, you can tell the story.
yeah, so the story with Steve, in particular, that story was really interesting because it's like one time where I feel like maybe they've learned from that experience, but they didn't really take the time to try to build a paper trail or to do like a lower level acts of retaliation first that they could use to justify terminating him. It was just a very cut and dry situation. So pretty much there has been a kind of unofficial policy in the store where management will have an art team. They're the ones who do all the signs, like all the cool artwork that you see in a Trader Joe's is
Mm-hmm.
done by like an artist team. I think right now they've been phasing out for a little bit, but the way it works now is it'll be the stores that still have an art team will do the majority of the artwork for the stores that don't.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they have been doing things in practice and not written on any paper because they hate having any of their policies written on paper. That's something that helps them a lot when it comes to the hearings and trying to
Mm.
not show that any of these policies actually exist in practice. But pretty much they have a thing that they'll do where they'll have artists use power tools that they're not trained to use, that they wouldn't generally view as being safe for people who aren't trained to use them to use.
Mm.
one of the tools they had was a jigsaw, and they would have the artist use that, like making signs or doing whatever else. So the funny thing is, like, officially, you know, the policy is that no one in the store is supposed to be using a jigsaw. The jigsaw that actually exists in the store is one that the store captain asked one of the artists to buy. The artist who got fired for it, mind you, isn't even the artist who purchased it for the store, though. And he was asked to take it home. His wife is the one who purchased it, and she was like, purchased it at the request of the company. But this tool was in the store before this guy was even working in the store, And he was eventually fired for the tool not being removed. Mind you, he didn't know where the tool was because management was still using it at that time while they were telling everybody that officially no one can use that tool anymore. And eventually they fired him. On paper, the reason why was because he didn't get rid of that tool. Of course, in reality, like this tool was not his tool, wasn't something that he brought in. Isn't anything there would be any reasonable like expectation for him to be the one to remove. But what we can say was he was an active union supporter. He was very open about his support. He was open about issues that he had with the way the company was handling the artist position. That used to be a position where, like, if you're hired as an artist, you're an artist. You have a different pay scale. You work primarily doing the artwork, and then over time it became like just a crew member. So now the artist is the same as any other position in the store, despite the fact that these are people who have like taken time to learn a very specific skill. A lot of the times they've had like actual education, a formal education in art before getting that job. And they're doing a lot of work that in any other place would be paying them a lot more.
So really,
The biggest problem, oh yeah, the biggest problem he really had with it wasn't even anything related to the money. It was really just the fact that by all of the artists just being regular crew members, having to be like on register, do all of those other jobs, they weren't actually getting any time to do art, but they were still expected to get the same amount of art done in that time. So
oh,
those are kind of the things that like put a target on his back.
that's really interesting. So expecting them to produce the same quantity of artwork, but in less actual time for those artistic tasks. But also, it's interesting to see just a massive cutting away at terms and conditions of the position, and also just the tremendous amount of gaslighting. Just so in what you're describing, he wasn't even the one. It's not. It's sort of like the chain of custody for the tool is so unclear, and it just sounds like very fictional reason to get rid of somebody if it has nothing to do with his actual performance. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, we did talk it's like 18 months ago, and I'm sure there's a lot that has transpired since then. I wanted to sort of get, I guess, a bird's eye view of what you've learned from your experience, because I believe you were at Trader Joe's for, I think, well over 10 years. Or maybe it's been 11 or so by now.
I think it might be 12. I would have to actually check because I was
Okay.
even on their official Dayforce application, it's very difficult to find clear information of like when the hire date was. But it was 11 or 12 years. Yeah, it's been quite some time.
Well, so before I drill into that, I want to ask you about your identities, because in the last conversation, I didn't have a chance to ask you about that. So everybody brings their various identities into any situation. So what would you like to share about your most important identities? And you can interpret that as broadly as you wish.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to identities, it's like for me, they're just there. You know what I mean? And like you realize which ones are like quote unquote important based off of which things tend to affect the way that you're treated at a certain time. I am very black, and that's definitely an
What? I'm
identity where
shocked.
I know, yeah, and like
Right. What?
people are surprised. They're like looking right at me and they're like, wait a minute. But yeah, I think that that's one of those identities where it's like very much has been in my face most of my life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, obviously, like, race and the way that the world interacts with race is something that you can't really get around. And for the most part, it's fairly subtle. You know what I mean? Or at least it'll look subtle on paper. And we can like talk about like the way things actually happen in practice, whether it's like obviously like 20% longer sentences on average for the same crimes for black people, whether it's about the way that the same interactions with black people tend to be read differently due to just like biases that people may not even be conscious that they have, you know, like everywhere from the way that like the criminal justice system interacts with black people to the way that just others like socially interact with them can be in some way influenced by someone's identity, whether that's race, gender, anything else, you know. And the funny thing about like being able to spot racism, because like racism is such a strong word and there's so much power behind it. And in reality, like when someone's doing something racist, there could be someone doing something racist that I wouldn't consider as a racist person. I think the majority of people who do something that's racist, I wouldn't consider racist like as like a defining characteristic that they have. You know, a lot of
Mm.
times people are just interacting with these biases that they're not necessarily aware that they even have. And it's hard to really even like, as the person who's dealing with it, always pinpoint when that's influencing it, you know, and that's kind of an interesting part of like even looking at the research, right? Like when you see that like people tend to like assume that black children are a little bit older than they actually are, or they tend to assume that black people are more physically powerful than they actually are. There's like a lot of these random assumptions, but if you were to ask an individual if that's the reason why, you wouldn't be able to like gauge just from that. You can only do it based off of looking at patterns and saying like, oh, this is interesting that this one thing is only happening with this demographic of people and seems to be pretty consistent. So like on an actual individual level, it's a lot harder to gauge, but you know, it's easy to see when something aligns with those trends, but it's hard to say this is exactly what it is. And you know, I think that a lot of times for someone who's black, you know that if you call it how you see it, even if you're like fairly certain, even if you're 100% certain, but it's not something that's easily provable, that it's going to just be seen as playing the race card, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes people a lot less likely to call out some of this stuff when it actually happens. But yeah, I'm black and non-binary. That part has played some role in some of the weird activity that's happened at the store, which we can talk a little bit about later too, in terms of like some discrimination and the way the company kind of handled that. That was coming. This stuff that was coming from the anti-unionists, but was also handled pretty poorly from the company itself. But yeah, those are the two things that I think
Mm-hmm.
like probably play the most of a role. You know, also ADHD gang. You know, shout out to everybody in the audience for ADHD. There's definitely a big part of that plays a role in I think a lot of my experience, but I don't think that's gonna play as much of a role in terms of some of the stuff we're talking about here today.
That's okay. I think it's interesting to talk about like different identities, whether that's like neurodiversity or race or non-binary, just so that people can kind of connect. Like, oh, who is this Jamie Edwards, right? Like on a human level, they might have heard
Mm-hmm.
about you in in terms of what you've done in labor, but they might have no idea. Like, oh, okay. Oh, you're like a flesh and blood person. So, thank you for
Oh yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah, you're real. You're real.
I am a human. Yeah.
You're a human. Yeah, and I would say if there's any story you want to tell, you don't have to like hold back or save it for later. Feel free to just like share how as you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to
Well,
know. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just to say like I guess I could kind of just like I could talk a little bit about like some of the things that have been happening since the last time we spoke,
Mm-hmm.
and just like
Mm-hmm.
just so the audience at home like has like kind of a summary to know like where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And just the stuff that's fresh in my mind is probably going to be the stuff specifically relating to me. A lot has happened to a lot of people there though. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we touched on the situation with Steve a little bit. And the situation there, like obviously Steve got fired for a reason that I think was kind of somewhat intentionally like nonsense because they kind of wanted to make it clear that like people at that store should be afraid of what the company is willing to do.
Oh,
But
interesting.
and the way that we kind of handled that was like the way we would typically handle something like that. Sort of doing escalating actions. We did like we start off with like just a red shirt day, just to kind of really that's like some part of it is for the company because it's sort of like an implied threat of a larger action. They understand that there's this amount of people who are on the same page who are willing to go further if it's necessary. But also it's good for the actual people in the store themselves. It shows them that they're not in this alone. It shows them that there are a lot of people that have their backs too. And it also makes them feel like more confident going into bigger actions. And then after that, we did like, a march on the bus, handing them a petition that was signed by a majority of the people in the store. And the last stage of that, or second to last, I guess, was doing a walkout in the store. And that was like, I think the biggest action that we've done. We had like hundreds of people from the community come out and support. We marched in front of the store, made managers really mad. It was a good time. And I definitely understand why they want to fire me for sure.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Right. How?
But yeah, since that time, there's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, every review I've gone. I think there was like the first review that I got after we had the union election. They tried to play it safe and gave everybody their raise. Since then,
Okay.
though, I've lost, yeah, and since then I've
Mm-hmm.
lost three consecutive raises. There are certain things that, like, if you work in retail, if you work at a Trader Joe's, they're things that happen every day. Every day at the store, you'll hear a customer come back and have to say, like, "Oh, there's a mistake on my receipt or something."
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you want to happen often, but it's a thing that does happen often.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who's been at that store for like a decade has made a mistake on an order. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something you'll get a write up for. Everybody's had a check that hasn't gone through right because somebody writes the wrong cent on the check or something. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something anyone ever gets a write up for. And then you'll notice that when you start organizing, a lot of those little things that wouldn't even like warrant like a talking to are suddenly a thing that immediately gets you a write up and stops you from getting a raise. So
Mm-hmm.
like one situation with me, somebody wrote the wrong number on their check, like in the cent, like a couple of cent off, and not only did I get a write up for it, but then in a second review cycle, they brought up the same thing to deny me a raise again. So
Oh my
now it's
God.
like it's even at the point that they're stopping you from getting a raise for the same thing twice. And then one of the famous things that have stopped me from getting a raise was there was a crew member who they offered, I'm trying to remember the amount. They offered, I believe it was 20K to get her to quit.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and then when I talked to the store captain about that, and I was like, "Hey, would you want to like go somewhere to talk about this?" Because at that point we had a relationship where, even though to a certain extent, I knew not to trust him, I also knew that he wanted to keep like a friendly relationship, So like
Mm-hmm.
we could talk about issues in the store if like a mate's an assistant manager at Trader Joe's. If a mate was doing something that was just really out of line, he would have a talk with them and try to smooth it over. So this situation was much different, and I was like, "Hey, I want to talk about you guys offering this person this money to quit and everything, and then trying to forcibly put them on leave." And in that situation, they actually he just did not want to have the conversation. So first he said like, "What is it about?" And then I told him what it was about, and then he was just like, "No, I think you should just call the office about that." The office being the headquarters. And then eventually I just went back to working after I told him like, that that was an illegal thing to do and that you have to go through the union for stuff like that. Whatever. Then I went back to the register. 2 hours later, he came up to me and he told me that he had to ask me to leave because my behavior was aggressive and threatening.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's strange. So I got my stuff and I left. And Tony, who at the time was our organizing director, he's like, yeah, you definitely want to make a post online about this. Because in the past, when they've done shady stuff like this, we make a post about it, and at least that puts eyes on the situation, and it'll usually be good enough to stop them from like going all the way with whatever they're going to do. So I made a post about it. And I know a lot of people saw it because people were coming into the store and asking me about it the next day. And then I get pulled aside the next day, and I thought I was probably going to get fired then. But instead, I was given a write up. And when I'm looking at the write up, it says that I lunged towards the store captain, and I quote, with my fist aimed towards his head. So, yeah. And somehow, with everybody in the store, no one saw this happen, but like, okay. So that was crazy. And I'm just like, all right, they're willing to just outright make up a story. And what my guess is that he kicked me out for something that he was probably like told he could not kick me out for. And they probably, this is entirely speculation, in case they sue me. But like, this part of it is speculation. Everything else is like, that's for sure. But like, I don't know what the conversation was, but what I always guess is that someone probably told them like, you need to have like a more serious reason to kick someone out the store. That's what my guess is. But all I know for certain is that they made up like a crazy story of me, like essentially attempting to assault the store captain. And for some reason, instead of them calling the police or kicking me out of the store immediately, they let me work for 2 more hours just to give me a write up the next day.
Yeah, usually if you feel like someone's threatening you with violence or so on, you wouldn't just be like, "Oh, but you can hang out for another 2 hours. It's all good." That's a very weird chronology that doesn't, that is not logical or believable. And what time frame was that? Like what year? Oh, can you hear us? Hello? Oh, oh,
Can you hear me?
us? Yeah. What time frame
Yeah,
was
I can
that?
hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I tried to go to a different screen on my phone to try to like find when exactly that
Oh,
happened. And
okay.
it seems like the audio
Oh,
cuts out when I
that's
change
okay.
screens on
That's
my phone.
okay. If
But
you
that was
have, yeah.
I believe that was last year. It was last year or the year before. But this wasn't this year. That was
Oh,
like
okay.
closer to the
Okay.
time that we had our last interview.
Okay.
It was a little bit, probably a couple months after that. And then more recently, since then, we've had no shortage of other incidences, but more relevant to this stuff, I would say like actually I'd say the end of last year things started to heat up a little bit more again. And that was largely coming from the anti-unioners and then like the response from management when there's any kind of response from me, pretty much. There was a post that was put up in the back room that lists how much money all of the National Union officers made like in the past year, which for one I thought was hilarious because it just shows that we're barely being paid anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was funny. But the thing that I took issue with was the fact that it had my dead name on there.
Oh.
And I had changed everything at work, like for several years. Like my name tag says Jamie, everything, like even on the receipts when I ring someone out, it says Jamie. The logs when we're checking our schedule says Jamie. So like it was very much an obviously intentional thing that was done. And one of my coworkers even crossed out the name and wrote Jamie on it. And then the next morning, the anti-unionists took the sheet down and replaced it with a new copy that didn't have my dead name crossed out. So pretty clearly intentional. So I talked to a manager, and when we talk about it, he's just like doing all this stuff about like, we don't tolerate this kind of thing. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Would you like an opportunity to talk with Matt? Matt's the store captain. And I'm just like, I'm telling him, I'm like, I'm willing to talk with Matt, but like, I've already told you about what happened last time I talked with Matt without a witness. So I'd like to only talk with him if I had a witness present. Because like last time he accused me of lunging at him and kicked me out the store.
Oh
So
my
he's like,
goodness.
okay, yeah, I'll see if we can have someone like if he'll be okay with having a witness there. And I'm like, okay. So a couple days pass, and then I talk with Matt. He's like, "Hey, you wanted to talk, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
"All right, if you want to give me a sec, I'll go grab a witness." He's like, "Oh, sorry, we're not legally obligated to have a witness here for this because it's not disciplinary." And I'm like, "I'm not asking if you're legally obligated. I'm asking if I can do that, so there
Mm-hmm.
can be someone who can verify that this conversation did happen. So if
Mm-hmm.
nothing's done, it's on record that you knew." And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "We can't do a witness." So I'm like, "All right, we don't need to talk about this, right?" And
Mm-hmm.
then he's like, "You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to talk about it?" I'm like, "If we can't have it on record and I can't be sure that, something's going to be done about it and that it'll be clear that this conversation has happened, then I'd rather not." Which I still think is a safer bet. Who knows what what scenario he'd make up if I would have just had that conversation. But pretty much the next day, it might have been the next day, might have been the same day, but this was all in the same week. One of the main anti-unioners, who I'm guessing is the one who put it up, actually pulled me to the side when I was trying to work and was just like, "Hey, I noticed you put up a response in the break room about people being like, queer phobic and stuff because the dead naming. That's the name that was on the government website." And I'm like, "All right, look, we don't have to play dumb. You know what you're doing. The name was crossed out. You put it back up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is what my name tag says. This is what everything says. You know that there's a name I go by." Now, the funny thing is, the same mate who I had talked to about this like discrimination and harassment walked past us and saw the conversation, overheard some amount of it. And this guy continues, and I'm just like, "All right, look, I know what this is." You know what I mean? I have no interest in having this conversation. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
trying to work. I'm on the clock
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I left, and then he continued complaining to everybody about how when he tries to talk to me for answers about union activity, I don't give him any, which was literally not what the conversation was about. But I'm like, "All right, cool." So initially, I'm obviously upset about this, and then I'm just kind of snap out of. I'm like, "Yo, look, I have to get back to organizer brain. I need to like
Organizer
actually talk to
brain.
people about." Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
have to switch back into organizer brain and stop being mad about it
Mm.
and just start using it as a way to organize. People need to know about what's going on.
Mm.
So I'm talking to my coworkers about it, while doing my job, while I'm still having conversations with customers. As soon as the customer leaves, I'll sort of like fill people in. And now that same mate who I initially talked to about the problem, who
Mm-hmm.
saw me continuing to be harassed by the same anti-union later, he comes up to me to tell me like, "Hey, I noticed that you're not really interacting with the customers." And I'm like, "All right, first of all, if this is a disciplinary conversation, I'm gonna have a witness present."
Mm-hmm.
So a union supporter came up to be up there with me, and then Matt, the store captain, like marches down from like up where the office is just to say like, "Wait, why do you have a witness here?" And it was just so funny because like it was in front of customers,
Wow.
and it just on its face it seems like something you don't want to be seen doing, like marching up and storming up there to say like, "Hey, there shouldn't be a witness for this." Like it's just very strange.
That is
But pretty
very.
much
Mm-hmm.
but pretty much in that conversation, he was asking like, "Yeah, you're talking a lot with your cashiers when you're bagging," and I'm like, "Yes, that's something we're allowed to do." And he's like, "Well, you have to also talk with the customers." I'm like, "You mean like asking how they're doing, if they found everything all right?" I go down the whole list, and he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yes, that's what I'm doing." And then he's just like, "I'm not understanding why this is an issue," and I'm pretty much just like, there can't be like a different standard that's applied to me versus the anti-unioners. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if one of the lead anti-unioners just before I got up on register was handing out letters to people about why they should be opposed to the union, you can't
Oh,
then tell
wow.
me that I
Right.
can't even talk about what's happening at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when Matt came over, asked about the witness and everything, and then it was funny because like he turns to Lance. Lance is my friend who is also the witness there. He's like, "Lance, you can leave now." And then Lance just looks at him, and then he just turns and looks at me. He's like, "Do you still need me here?" And like he just like the captain expected him to be intimidated. He was not at all. And then I was just like, "No, you're good. We're good now." And then we all went about our day. So sorry, this is a long stretch of stories, but these are all interconnected, starting with the paper in the break room, and then that. So the next day, a pro union former coworker that was at the store like a couple months back, used to work with us briefly. She goes to my line. I'm telling her the story about what happened, and the same mate involved in the story sees me talking and then makes the beeline to like eavesdrop on the conversation.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he's like, "Hey, you guys need help bagging?" And we're just like, "No." And then, and as he does, he just awkwardly just like stares at us for like 15 seconds with like a fake smile. And then he's like,
Wow.
okay, and then walks off, right? Now, at Trader Joe's, there's like a policy where like we can give things away to customers. Like we're actually told to all the time. You'll put an X on the barcode and then you give it to the customer. And then like whoever put the X on the barcode will just write it off. So it's accounted for in the office. So that customer, my friend who I used to work with, one of the items had an X on the barcode. I'm not the one who put the X on it. So like traditionally whoever puts X on is the only person who has to worry about like making sure it's written off. Like it's literally my job to just hand it to the person, like as a rule,
Mm-hmm.
not to interrogate them and then like find the person and all of that stuff. So pretty much we go through that transaction. And the next day, the store captain then comes up to me and says, "Hey, I want to talk with you about an interaction you had with a customer yesterday." And I'm like, "What about the interaction?" He's like, "Well, you can get a wine garden rep for this." And I'm like, "Oh, interesting." So I get someone to be my witness, and he tells me that that same conversation, which mind you, this is with the same mate that I originally made the complaint to, who then reprimanded me for discussing the harassment I was receiving in the store, and who then tried to go bag on my register to eavesdrop. Apparently, he accused me of stealing.
Oh my
So he
gosh.
said that, yeah, he's like, he thinks that I stole that item for the former coworker who I was ringing out. So that ended up being another write up, which is something that's entirely unheard of in Trader Joe's. Cause like, even if somebody, even like for the person who did X off the barcode, if they forgot to actually like, go write it off, all they would ever do at the end of the night is just say over the intercom, "Hey, who wrote off this item? We have to make sure it's like accounted for on the sheet if they found anything with like an X on the barcode." Like it's never been something that anyone's ever even gotten a write up for whatsoever. Yeah, there's a sheet where we like write off anything, and like
Mm-hmm.
there's one thing that's like there's one side of it that's for things we give the customers, most commonly flowers. If it's someone's birthday, if someone's grieving or something, we're allowed to go grab a bouquet of flowers and give it to them. Like if someone hasn't tried something, we can just give it to them, and then write that off. And then there's another section for crew members. Like if we want to just open up a bag of chips or something for the break room, then we'll fill it out there. So yeah, that's like for the over a decade I've been at the store, that's been super, super like not just common practice, that's the policy. Like they actively encourage us to write things off for customers. So it's funny that I got a write up for it. And in the write up, the words that they used was just like, "We do not give things away for free."
Oh my
And I was like,
gosh.
okay, cool, cool.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that whole string of retaliation was based off of that initial dead naming incident. And
Mm.
that was like was it three incidents or somewhere too? So then the last one, now the store captain the next day after that is bagging for me, and a customer said something about me scanning fast. I didn't really hear everything she had said. I was just trying
Mm-hmm.
to get the transaction over with because the store captain was there. And then the next day after that, I get another write up because he told me that I scanned too fast and it made the customer feel intimidated.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
So all of those springing from like, it's literally retaliation for like, they're retaliating like every time they retaliate, they have to do it another time based off of how I respond to their first retaliation. And it just kept going on like that.
It's so
So
in-
that guaranteed I wouldn't get that raise either.
it's so interesting. It's almost like, oh, you caught me doing something bad, so I have to like paper your file and make it all crazy.
Yeah.
To as if someone would not connect these events together. Yeah, because there's if you print something with someone's dead name, that means you had opportunity, like you saw it on like a computer, and then,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know if they use like a photocopy machine, if it's like an old thing, old piece of equipment. But there's plenty of opportunity to like read. I can't imagine that this is a very long piece of paper.
Very short.
Very short. I'm assuming it's just like a list of names and some like amounts. Yeah, you would know that. Oh, yeah, you did name somebody.
Yeah.
So you had referred earlier to non-binary identity
Mm-hmm.
taking a role in your position working at Trader Joe's. Is this like were there other incidences that you wanted to share or you feel comfortable sharing? related to
I
that?
mean, those were the worst ones that were related to that because like this store is in Hadley. That's like literally like one of the queerest places in the country,
Oh, is
Northampton, which
it?
is like right next to it. Yeah. Like
Mm.
I live in Springfield, like but I worked in Hadley. Northampton, its neighbor, I think is like probably I think it was like the like I think it's called like the lesbian capital of the country. Like so this is like a very, very queer area. But that being said, there are people who come from like other towns there. There are more conservative areas that are like pretty nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And like no big surprise, a lot of the anti-union side tends to lean more on that side politically, but not exclusively. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're not all exactly on the exact same page politically, but that dude in particular, he this is a guy who literally has sent me like Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens videos. Who like
I'm
for
like,
those in the
what?
audience who are lucky enough to not know who those are, they are like right wing to fairly far right wing commentators online. Candace Owens, who famously was with like hanging out with Kanye West after he began his like neo-Nazi arc and everything. So these are the people that he sent me videos for to try to convince me that my union politics were bad in the past. Same
That's such
guy.
a weird vibe. Also, why
Yeah.
he would spend his personal time to do this?
Yeah, he was trying to have a debate with me that I wasn't really interested in having one time. He's just like, hey, this might change your mind. And he sends me a link.
Oh my
And when
gosh.
I clicked the link, when I clicked the link,
Oh my
it took
gosh.
me to YouTube and it's a Ben Shapiro video. And the
Oh
thumbnail
gosh.
was a photoshopped image of like Joe Biden, like I think he was like lighting money on fire or something.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, I am not clicking this.
Oh
I'm
my
not watching this
gosh.
video, like, um, but yeah, and mind you, the same guy, literally just like a little bit after I got fired, there was a whole thing that happened in the store where he was saying a lot of just openly transphobic stuff in the store, and there hasn't been any consequences for it as of yet either. So like this is sort of the norm with some of these people. Oh, I'm
That,
gonna say that's not necessarily representative of everybody in the
mm-hmm.
anti-union group
Mm-hmm.
by any means, but it's an element that they haven't seemed to be like they haven't seemed interested in policing, and but there's a lot of different like elements to that whole side, and that's specifically like the leadership of that group, who's the side that I usually like will put the blame on, and really even more so than that, the company who like wants to like deputize like workers to work against other workers. They're ultimately the ones who I put most of that blame on.
So, what time frame was that all happening?
All these things were happening, I believe like later last year. I'm so sorry that I
Mm-hmm.
can't like.
No,
I
that's
would
fine.
normally actually just.
No, no, that's
I
fine.
will say for
Mm-hmm.
any of the audience who wants
Mm-hmm.
more specifics, though,
Mm-hmm.
I'll reopen my Instagram account, but my Instagram actually has like I have documented all of these things
Oh,
as they've
okay.
happened.
I
Like
see.
I'll actually, yeah, I'll upload the actual image of like the write ups and all of that stuff. So when you're listening to this, you can look at Instagram slash Jamie Edwards underscore TJU for Trader Joe's United,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be able to see like all the specifics of that because like there was a time in the past where I was able to be active on social media and like post those things as they happened. But yeah, that'll give like more specifics and like sort of like you'll be able to see like the dates when it all happened. Because it is interesting. A lot of it does happen in like clusters because it sort of like builds
Mm.
up off of past incidents of retaliation and everything.
I remember looking for your Instagram because I was following it, and then I couldn't. There was a while I couldn't find it. So,
Yeah,
what is it? Are you? Was it?
it's off right now, but
Oh,
I'll
okay,
I'll
okay,
reopen it after this. Yeah,
okay, okay.
I get off social media every once in a while.
Oh, okay. That's really
Sort
healthy.
of, yeah, sort of a
Mm-hmm.
part of the whole part of just like kind of being human and like
Mm-hmm.
it's easy if you're like in a leadership position and you're like doing a lot of this work that like even the way that you look at yourself, you sort of see yourself as like a tool for the movement.
Mm.
But some of the stuff does actually take a toll on you over time, and sometimes it's nice to be able to just like kind of log off of all of that stuff and not have to be a part of like the kind of online organizing retaliate like stories about retaliation ecosystem.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, how do you? I mean, how do you take care of yourself when, like, whether you are experiencing something that might be the result of, say, racism or like transphobia or so on? I mean, yeah, how do you take care of yourself?
I mean, I mean, I guess I can only give the honest answer. It's like you just kind of deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really room to to prioritize taking care of yourself when you're like organizing. And that's not an answer I'm sure anyone really wants to hear, especially if they want to organize. But
Mm.
I don't know. In my experience organizing, we start off with a small organizing committee. Then, like, when we went public and we're like getting closer to our election, we expanded it to like 19 people. And then eventually some people left, eventually some people got less active. It's unfortunate, but really a lot of what drives engagement is it's a combination of like how much effort you can put into what's happening on a
Mm-hmm.
local level as
Mm-hmm.
an organizer,
Mm-hmm.
and how many things are actually happening that inspire people to want to act. And a lot of times that's just based off of how aggressive the company is being. There's almost like a sweet spot of retaliation that the company can give out, where it's like
Mm.
enough to make people mad, not necessarily enough to make them scared.
Oh,
Really, if it
interesting.
makes them mad enough and they know that everyone has each other's back, then that can still motivate them to action. But for me personally, like, I was the local president and national president the whole time I was doing this. So
Mm-hmm.
we never had another local president. There was never a time I wasn't stretched thin. And even then, it's like, this is a reality of organizing. Sometimes people, when they're used to having a small group of people who are the organizers who get to be the ones who have a target on their back, they kind of just like, it's easier for them to take a couple steps back and just be like, oh, they got this covered. And that's a thing that was definitely the case at several different points in time doing this. And that wouldn't be ideal even if I was just a local president, but doing that as both the local and national president definitely made that a challenge. And then, like, when you combine both of those roles and being the primary target of retaliation, and you just like the financial hit that you take, like just having an independent union, and like
Mm-hmm.
having to go to all these different places for bargaining. It's like there are weeks where I was only working like 2 or 3 shifts a week at Trader Joe's, and I'm having to
Mm.
spend more money while I'm like doing all of this, like flying around the country for like, could be bargaining in Hadley one week, bargaining in Minneapolis like a week or two later, bargaining in Oakland a week or two later. So all of those things can make it a lot more challenging. And that's just kind of like the ugly reality to it. Like, there isn't always just like a way to kind of take care of yourself during that time. Some part of organizing is just suffering.
Suffering. Wow, wow, you made it sound so
Suffering.
glamorous.
I know, the
Everybody
glamorous
jump
life
up
of
at
organizing.
once. What's the glamorous life of organizing?
But
So,
it helps people though.
but it
Just
helps
not,
people.
it helps people. Just not the person doing it.
Is it weird to have free time now? Is this like the most free time you've had in the last
Yeah,
while?
definitely. Yeah, because I stepped down as national president already. Then I also got fired.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, like, I knew this was the case. I had told so many people, and I hate being right because I'm always right about something bad,
Oh no.
And then people are like, "Oh wow, you're right," and I was just like, I'm like, I know I'm gonna get fired once I step down. They're gonna no longer be afraid to fire me,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna go through with it because I know they were trying not to fire me. Like, they actively were
Interesting.
trying to make me quit. Like, the entirety of the time I
Oh,
was the
I
president,
see.
they wouldn't give me any raises. They'd give me write ups for everything, and like most of the things they claimed I did that they gave me a write up for would be an offense you would get terminated for. So like all of that told me like they're not trying to fire me. If they wanted to fire me, they would have fired me when they said that I tried to throw a punch at the store captain, right? Like, obviously they want me to quit on my own because if I quit on
Mm.
my own, it won't be like as much of a blank storm for the company,
Mm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think that was a big part of it. Then like when I got fired, it was like probably a week or two after like the first bargaining session that I didn't show up to. So they definitely said like, all right, this is the time.
That's
and
interesting.
they
It's very
yeah
psyops. Like, oh,
yeah
let's try to intimidate Jamie. Let's say this, let's say that, and just see what happens. To
yeah
that's
definitely.
such a weird dynamic, and like,
I yeah.
mm-hmm.
I would say I don't think that they thought they can intimidate me, which is why they didn't like me. Like any of the
Oh,
like OGs of like our union, they knew that they weren't going to scare, but they were going to try to make their lives miserable until they just quit because it's not worth it, you know. But in my case, as soon as I stepped down, they're like, okay, now it's not going to be as big of a deal if we fire this person. We're just firing a regular crew member. We're not firing like
mm,
the president of the union, you know.
mm-hmm,
So all of that happened. Even that situation was funny because like I come into work one day and then the store captain, like while I'm about to clock, I don't know, right after I clocked in, he's like, "Oh, you don't need to check in with a product leader. That's the person who like, you know, you check in with if you're working out like off of register." It's like, you don't need to check on them, just come to the back and talk with us. And I'm like, what are we talking about? And he's like, oh, we'll talk when we get back there. And I'm like, well,
mm,
I'd like to know if it's something disciplinary so I can have my wine garden rep.
mm-hmm.
And he says, you won't need it. It's already decided. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
like, huh, okay, let's see what's going on here. And I actually didn't think they were going to fire me, even though like I had already like knew in my mind that that was likely going to happen once I stepped down. But
Mm-hmm,
like it had been like I'd stepped down from the national presidency in February, you know, and this was May. Since that
mm-hmm.
time, I boosted up my availability. So I was working there 5 days a week. I was working more hours every shift. I was picking up shifts, like coming in early
I'm sure they
because,
love
like,
that.
literally, you would think. And then, like, once we get to the back, like, I'm like, so what's this about? Right. And he's like, it's about an interaction you had with a customer about overcharging them. And I'm just like, no, because I didn't have a conversation about any customer about overcharging them. And he's like, yeah, we already talked with Susie about it. And I'm like, oh, so you must be talking about a conversation I had with Susie. I didn't have an interaction with a customer about it. I had an interaction where Susie told me I overcharged the customer. And then I simply asked her, did you actually check the order to see if I overcharged the customer?
Mm.
And her only response was, why would they lie? And I'm just like,
Oh
look, I
my
just want to know if
gosh.
you actually looked at the order. She's like, but
Mm.
why would they lie? I'm just like, did you not look at the order? No, but why would they lie? I'm just like, okay, that's all I wanted to know. So
Wow.
it's just hilarious that then made its way up to the store captain. The fact that like when literally the whole issue was that she was accusing me of something that she could not prove actually happened, right? Like,
Wow.
so then he's like, well, I explained that to him that like that's what happened. He's like, well, there's plenty of other things too. And I'm like, so am I being terminated right now? It's like, yeah, here's your termination papers. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And he actually
Mm.
was like, so do you want to know everything else? And I'm like, well, you already led with telling me something that wasn't actually true.
Mm-hmm.
You've already given me multiple write-ups based off made up reasons. You know, you've
Mm-hmm.
already said that like I've tried to lunge at you and everything. And it was just a funny response because what he said was like, you're bringing up the past. Instead of saying that it wasn't true, he said, I'm bringing up
Oh,
the
that's
past, which
really funny.
what's the implication there, right? Like, but it was
He's
just really funny. So he says that, and then pretty much I'm like, all right, look, just give me the papers you need, and I'm gonna go about my day. We don't need to waste my time or yours. You know what I mean? Like, we know what this is. And then he gives me the paperwork, and then I was just like, the one thing I actually said, like out of anger at the moment, I was just like, you don't have integrity, because like that's Trader Joe's whole thing is like integrity. You know, like
oh
in the
wow.
back room, there's a big thing on the wall that says like Trader Joe's core values,
Mm.
number one, integrity. And they constantly talk about it, but it's just like
Mm.
it's weirder with this particular store captain because like there are managers there who like I would guess probably just are not capable of empathy. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And he's not actually one of them. You know what I mean? And like he's someone who like I can see guilt on his face when he's firing me. I've seen guilt on his face in the past
Mm.
when things have happened. You know what I mean? Like another time where he's like talked to me, I've explicitly said I don't want to have conversations with you without a witness present. That's why I didn't want to have that conversation at this time. And he's actively even said like, no, I understand why you want to have a conversation with me when there's a witness present. So like he acknowledges it, you know what I mean? Like obviously me and him both know, but there's like the fact that he'll even like on some level acknowledge some of it when there are other people in the room. Cause like there was another mate with him when he was firing me. So like, even that's interesting that like, oh, he would say something like you're bringing up the past. Right. But like,
Yeah, his own.
pretty
It's
much I was
like
just like,
his own humanity is certain.
yeah,
Like you,
yeah.
you are acknowledging his humanity, and he's.
Well,
It's
yeah,
almost like
but
he's uncomfortable. He's more. It almost sounds like he was more stressed out than you were in
well,
that
to be
moment.
fair though, I don't want to sound like I'm being like very nice about it because for
Okay.
me, I respect
Okay.
like the fact that he feels bad about it and is still doing it makes me respect him less. So like I respect the fact that he has some level of humanity that he's even capable of feeling bad about. And I'm assuming he's feeling bad about it based off of reading his interactions, based off of other coworkers that see stuff outside of that interaction later the same day, which was also the case like the time that I got kicked out of the store. That's like what I would gather from it. And for the fact that me and him had a good relationship for a long period of time. It's like on a certain level, I know not to trust him. He's a manager. I know shady stuff he's done, but we've always been like cool. There's always been some mutual respect. And yeah, so like I could see that. But like yeah, for me, the fact that I know he actively knows he's doing something wrong and doesn't have the backbone to not do it, that's to me that's something that like I respect less. You know what I mean? If someone who just simply didn't care was doing it, that's at least internally consistent with their own principles. But somebody who actually feels bad about it and just doesn't have the heart to say like, no, I'm not going to do this, or to walk away from a job that makes them violate their own principles, to me that's on some level worse.
Isn't that what jobs do, though? Don't jobs force people into situations where they don't get to say no to things that they don't agree with?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No, I would say no, no. I would say that they incentivize you to be in situations where you don't say no to things that you agree with. But like everybody has a line that they wouldn't violate, and it like that they wouldn't violate in terms of their own principles if their boss asked them to do, where they would rather walk away from the job. So like they're not putting a gun to anyone's head and forcing them to union bust or do any of these things. Are they incentivized to do those things? Absolutely. And like those are real pressures, you know what I mean? Like I'm a socialist and I think that like one of the problems with this system is that like ultimately on some abstract level we are all held at gunpoint because we do all need to work in order to pay our bills and everything. But that being said, like he has his own level of responsibility and like the way that he's handling things because he chose to have a job where he knows that ultimately he's going to have to answer to the corporation and do their bidding. Like, and that's going to have to take priority over like the well-being of the people who work beneath him. So like, that's the way that I mean that. But like, yeah, I do agree that like obviously like that's just a part of capitalism. It's like work will make people or will yeah, they'll make people in that sense like do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. But there's still some amount of choice, as much as anyone has choice. But I'm not going to go into like a free will conversation
That's
right
right.
now.
That's fine. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So that was like the first week of May, the termination. And we're talking now on the 30th of May. So between then and now, what has it been like for you? Because this,
Well, I do want to
so
say too. Oh yes, I was just going to say really quick too. The funny thing about it was the day I got fired was on May Day. It was May 1st, International Workers' Day.
oh my
That's the day I
gosh.
got fired, which is very funny. And the first time that I was made to leave the store was actually in May. It was like it was the day after my birthday, actually. It was the first time. This was when I had to go home because I refused to take off a union pin. This was before we had our first election. And now it's like sort of come full circle. And on May Day, I got fired. And now it's once again right after my birthday because my birthday was yesterday, May 29th. And it's like this company has something. There's something about doing
Wow.
this stuff in May. I don't know what the deal is there. Yeah, but happy birthday, me.
Happy
This is
birthday to Jamie. Oh my gosh. Well, you don't sound like someone who's intimidated or scared. Like, what's interesting is,
no.
yeah, and so it's kind of weird, like the whole, oh, we're going to do this sort of all the energy directed towards you and sort of like their biggest move in this situation is against you personally is the termination
Hmm.
And you can, of course, speak to what they're doing in the store after, in general to other people. But it's sort of interesting. You do not seem like very upset or scared or so on. I don't like. I highly doubt that this termination is going to change how you feel about like being engaged in organizing.
No, I mean like in terms of like intimidation and everything, like I'm not just saying this to sound cool. It just happens
Okay.
to sound cool, but
Okay.
like none of us who like organize, we're not afraid of the company. You know what I mean? Like we don't.
Hmm.
There's not that the company's not going to scare us. You know, like we've all gone through that phase. You know, when we were like babies in organizing, when we were first starting, we were worried about losing our jobs,
Mm.
and it's fine to still be worried about those things and to
Hmm.
like plan around it. But like none of us are like we aren't people who back down like that. You know, that's what
Mm.
made us like a good fit for doing this kind of work, and that's why the company wants to make examples out of us because a lot of people aren't there yet. You know, a lot of those people still are a little bit more afraid, and if they can make an example out of the people who aren't afraid of them, that will, in their mind, make the rest of them fall in line. You know, so but yeah, that's there isn't anything that they could really do to intimidate me, you know what I mean? And like and also it's just like for anyone who has like politics that they would consider like revolutionary, this is just all very mild, you know? Like the effects that it has on people's
Mm.
lives are major, but I mean there are
Mm.
literally countries where Coca-Cola has like union organizers killed, you know? Like I can deal with like some of the nonsense that they're doing, you know.
Mm.
I almost feel like I wouldn't have a right to be afraid of like the stuff that they're doing.
Um, one of I happened to interview Malcolm Harris about his new book, What's Left, and one of the things he mentions is like the that indigenous women or indigenous women who are in like I guess agriculture, that's ecological, like a huge part of people fighting back against imperialism. It's these indigenous women who are farming and they're getting killed. And anyway, I just like it's interesting because yeah, it's. I think
Yep.
I asked him like, "Oh, did you? You know, you could have kind of tried to make it more fun and like, you could kind of
Hmm.
sugarcoat it to make it more like, oh, kids, hey kids, like let's all like get involved." But yeah, he didn't exactly sugarcoat it in the book.
Hmm. Yep.
So you're saying, or rather, I guess one of my questions is you've had this like long relationship at Trader Joe's, and of course, right, you have all these lived experiences, like as a worker, being on an organizing committee, being a president of a local, being president of a national. What are some just lessons about those experiences? Some key things that you would want to share with people with as you've worn all these different hats.
I would say, I mean, I guess it depends, like, what we mean. Like, there are definitely lessons in, like, there are lessons in organizing that I think are very useful for people. And then there's also lessons in, like, kind of just what to expect doing this. Like, in terms of organizing, I would say, like, stuff that's really important is just, like, taking your time with organizing. You don't want to take your time too much, but you want to make sure that you're not rushing at any stage. You want to make sure that like you take the time to understand what it is you're trying to sell people on when you're trying to like organize a union. You have to have all that knowledge first. You have to be able to like debunk all the anti-union talking points because even today most people all they know about labor, all they know about unions is stuff that they hear from their bosses, you know. So like you have to take the time to know that. You have to be able to have those conversations with people. You have to be able to be very like safe and secure in what you're doing, not having conversations at work. You know, if possible, just doing that all on Signal, like in terms of your organizing committees and being able to like meet up with people outside of work because that all takes time. You have to build you have to build relationships with people one on one. So you even have enough of rapport that you can have those conversations outside of work. And then once you have those conversations, you have to be very cautious about like seeing where they are in terms of like how they feel things are at work, and then seeing if how they feel about changing things before ever even bringing up the word union. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because even at that stage, you want to make sure that you're having a conversation with someone who won't run to management as soon as you're done with that
Mm-hmm.
conversation. You know, so like there are a lot of things about that, and there's not something that I've started yet, but I do want to start working on like actually putting together like a lot of the basics of organizing and everything. And I'll reach out to you when I do have something like that too,
Oh,
because I
that'd be
think it could be
great.
something useful for people, and like
Yeah.
probably like a video series on organizing, because like for me,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I definitely got help from like looking things up online, you know, like there was a channel, I don't think they're active anymore, but they were called Sliced Bread. I love any bread reference. Any anarchists who are listening know the reference, but they used to call like the left side of YouTube bread tube, a
Oh,
reference to
really?
Conquest
Okay.
of, yeah, from a Conquest of Bread from Peter Kropotkin, which was like a, a very compelling work, making a case for anarchism. But I wouldn't still consider myself an anarchist. I'd still definitely consider myself to be a socialist, and that's still something I would definitely say is worth reading. But anyways, pretty much this channel Sliced Bread kind of went down the basis of like organizing and how to like have a successful union campaign. There are some things I would make some changes to, but I think that like even if people do want to just like learn the basics right now, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good place to check it out. And that was something that I looked at, and like I sort of like built strategy around some of those things, and then just getting stuff from a lot of different sources and everything. But I definitely want to like put out some information, so like it'll be a lot easier for people to kind of do the same thing. But the biggest thing really is going to be patience, and you have to, when people start rushing, they start to like not pay as much attention to security. They start trying to like sell this idea to large groups of people at one time. All those things are like a much bigger risk. And you always have to remember that like if you're organizing and the company finds out before it's time, they will start firing people. You know, and that's going to affect a lot of people. That could affect a lot of the supporters who like you otherwise could save the job of. So like
Mm-hmm.
those are just things to keep in mind when you're trying to organize.
I remember, yeah, in our previous conversation, you were talking about the importance of security, like keeping
Mhm.
communication secure and also inoculation. So
Hmm.
definitely people can, I mean, for many reasons, of course, listen to that conversation as well. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I think I really enjoyed hearing you kind of break everything down because I don't think people realize how dangerous it is when people are trying to create
Hmm.
a brand new union.
And even like in my situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like right now I'm jobless, you know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to find new work, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But even considering that, right? Like I was the national president, and I was like the lead organizer to the first campaign. So it's like the effect of me getting fired by Trader Joe's might not like be as bad as it would be. Like, I mean, I've had probably a much rougher time at Trader Joe's than the average person there, but for someone else, it might not be as easy to like, you know, possibly find new work. I guess time will tell because I haven't found new work yet, but I'm probably leaving this in a easier like transition than a lot of people would, right? So like you really like as a person who's like organizing have to really be thinking about like how the best way to protect like those other people who you're working with, because they're the ones who are going to have it the worst if they like get fired or something. And yeah, and I guess like the other part outside of just like how the house is just like I guess the lessons I've learned and like sort of knowing what to expect and all of that stuff. Oh, were you going to ask something else?
Yeah, I do have more questions, but
Oh yeah, of course.
just like I guess these all these things happen, and some things might surprise you, some things might not surprise you. Did you experience a lot of surprise, or is it just like, hey, I chalk it up to the conflict with the company? Were there things that were sort of shocking, like for better or worse? For example, you were not surprised when they did the termination.
I would
But
say, unfortunately, I'm not surprised by a lot of it. Like,
okay.
I I feel like there's a lot of things that you can sort of see where they're going very early on, whether or not you have the ability to kind of like change course. You kind of know where they're going, and sometimes you're disappointed by being right about things, right?
What
I
about?
would say that like, oh yeah,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
would
Go
just
ahead.
say that like when it comes to organizing and stuff, like if you're building something from scratch, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different people, maybe with like different labor politics or just maybe with like different personalities, maybe with different philosophies on how things should be done. And I don't know, you have to be prepared for that. And sometimes it's going to work out, sometimes it won't, you know, but like there's a lot that you have to deal with that isn't just, you know, coming from the company, you know. It's just
Sure.
it's a
Sure.
very complicated world internally in your own organization. And the thing people don't want to ever say out loud, but labor in general is also a very messy world. And it's like we would like it to be a world that's just full of solidarity, but a lot of times it's a world that's very territorial. It's a world where there's a lot of internal politics that you don't see. And while I'll take it any day over just dealing with the company, it is I don't know, it's a space that involves people and people are shady, you know. So like
I
yeah,
just
unfortunately, like yeah, that's a part
so
of labor too, like it is in any other space.
I'm in Santa Cruz County, which includes Watsonville, and there was a very famous strike in Watsonville County in the 80s. And I interviewed this author, Peter Shapiro, who covered in his book the kind of the complexity of that strike. And there were many stakeholders, including labor organizations at like different levels, like national, regional, local, as well as other groups that sort of were trying to help or not. It's a complicated picture. Yeah, just to have a successful strike. It was one of the few successful ones in the first Reagan administration. So
Hmm.
yeah, people are complicated. One other question I had was, what does it take to win? Because I think people might be surprised how effective workers can be against the likes of, say, Elon Musk or so on. Because I think some people think, oh, power means political parties or it means establishments, this and that. They might not understand just like how much power people have in their workplaces. And so I'm just wondering if there are thoughts you want to share about, okay, what does it take to win in any form, like whether it's an action or whether it's to create a new union or so on.
I think it takes a lot of things. I think one thing it takes is just like really discipline. You know what I mean? That's probably the biggest thing. A lot of people have this idea of like they want to do this thing, but you have to be able to like make yourself learn everything that you need to know so you can have those conversations with everybody in the store, be able to answer all their questions. If you can't explain to someone else with the same labor politics why they should unionize, if you can't explain why every anti-union talking point is not true, then you're probably not ready to have those conversations with other people and to convince others, you know. And if you jump the gun there, what ends up happening is like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Once you jump the gun and you weren't able to like make a strong enough points, now if somebody goes to management or if now somebody like is looking at you sideways because like, you know, they're like brainwashed to be pro company or whatever, those are things that you're now going to have to deal with for the rest of your campaign if it doesn't get nipped in the bud by management, you know? So like that discipline's a very, very big part. And another part of it is like internal to like the group that you're working with. It's like there has to be like you all have to be working together. It can't be everybody just doing their own thing. There has to be like if it's like an organization with a set structure, like I know like everybody wants like these different radical forms of democracy, but there does still need to be like well yeah, and like I would like to see like things democratized in the sense that workers have more power in the workplace, but you do still need to have the ability to like set a course of action and follow through with the course of action. You can't You can't go in one direction and then somebody's like, no, let's do something else. And then like, if you're pulled in a million different directions and never follow through with any one direction, that's less effective than actually just making the wrong choice and then regrouping and then making the right choice. Like there has to be some level of like actual decision making ability, and there has to be people who are willing to do the roles and follow that role like through to completion to see how that turns out before they switch it up and try something else. So like that's another part of it too. You know what I mean? Like we have to be careful about like I don't know. It's like from an anarchist perspective, like the point of anarchism is to remove unnecessary hierarchy, but unnecessary is an important part of that, right? If you had like a group of people deciding like public health policy, and there's 100 people in the room, and one of them is a doctor, and 99 of them are Joe Rogan listeners. The fact that like the people with the least experience in that field are the ones who may have like a loud voice does not necessarily mean that's the case. Sometimes when it comes to organizing, and these aren't things that like I feel like most people really want to hear, but it's your job as an organizer to educate people. You know, it's not simply to just like ask what people want. You know what I mean? You have to make sure that all those things that these people want is first, like that they're starting off with a foundation of having all of the information first. So like that, I don't know, that's just a really big part of it, is like making sure that the decisions people want to make are educated ones. And it's, you know, it's not just your job to ask questions. It's also your job to educate people, you know? So that would be another big lesson. One of the very big ones that I think that a lot of times people don't take seriously enough. And I've seen different campaigns not do well. Like, I don't mean just specifically with TJU. I've just seen a lot of different things happen in the labor world. And a lot of it happens because you have a style of organizing where it's just like, let people kind of just do what feels right at the time. Like there does have to be some structure. There does have to be like a rule book, and there has to be like some like consistent, disciplined adherence to those rules. And there has to be like some like actual like structure of leadership, at least enough that you can like really follow through any set of plans and not just be moving back and forth and it be directionless, you know? So yeah, those are some big things I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, like the word organize would be key in organizing. That seems very fair. Are you okay? What about fun things? So you have some time now. Do you?
There is no fun. No
There's
fun.
no fun. You don't. Well, do you get to have fun now? Because you.
Fun is a capitalist propaganda.
Wow! Oh my gosh! Well, in between job hunting, I mean, I know it's not fun to job hunt, but do you try to kind of vary up, kind of make your days engaging in different ways, or is it just like a slog
Oh
of
yeah,
job
definitely.
applications? Or
And I do want to say really quick too, because I make things sound doom and gloom, because they are, but
yeah,
there are positives too.
Oh, okay.
There are positives, you know, like there's a lot of like really fun, joyful parts of organizing. And like anytime you have a successful action, all the stress that you dealt with, like building your way to that action, like there's just a level of satisfaction. There's a level of joy that comes from it. Like seeing all of those workers who it's like after a big successful action just snaps in their head, like they realize the amount of power they have. Like those things will recharge you and they'll motivate you to keep fighting. And like even some of like strategies for organizing, just like having like, I'm a strong believer in like every organizing committee having like a fun committee that focuses on like just doing fun things and getting everybody together. And the whole fun committee thing, the funny thing is like Trader Joe's has a fun committee that sets up parties and stuff. So like we chose to call our group the fun committee too, because we thought that would be funny. Also, another funny thing is like Trader Joe's United is TJU, but managers at Trader Joe's also go to a thing called TJU, which means Trader Joe's University.
Oh, that's
so that's just
funny.
a coincidence, but it's a very funny one to me.
That is
but yeah,
funny.
like even though we stole the name for the fun committee from TJU's or from Trader Joe's fun committee, I remember like watching videos about like ALU's organizing and like
Amazon
one of the
Labor
things
Union.
that and like a thing they would do is like have a lot of cookouts and all that stuff because they wanted to make sure that they could build those connections with people outside of work. When you're in the store, before you go public, you can't really like talk about all this stuff, like that'll get
Right.
people fired. So
Right.
like when you first go public, a lot of people are used to being very quiet about it. And like the big thing that you have to change there is that like now they're comfortable with it. So like when you have all these big events, it makes people like feel more comfortable because they know who else is like a supporter and they know they're not in it alone. And like that builds like it just builds like a really strong bond that makes people like want to fight for each other and feel more comfortable fighting for themselves. Yeah, so those are some things I would say are fairly fun related to the organizing. Now, for me as a
Yeah, for
jobless
you.
person,
Yeah, for you. Yes.
the fun for me is just the joy of being unemployed.
The
It's
job.
you know,
Wow.
I wake up when I want, and then
Mm.
I read manga and watch anime. And
No
that's my way of
way.
life. No,
Really?
no,
Oh, okay.
not really. Well, no, I do those things.
Mm.
I don't really wake up like late or anything. I live a pretty scheduled life in general because I just have too many things that I'm always trying to do at once. So
Mm-hmm.
I tend to kind of be running around. But for me, like my day to day is just like, I go to the gym, I do my training and stuff. Sometime next year, I want to compete in my first powerlifting meet. I've
Mm.
always been like lifting and stuff. I'm not the strongest I've been, but like I'm trying to get my numbers up and do a meet. So we'll see how that goes. My deadlift is like at 400, which is like just like
Wow.
almost advanced for my weight class. It's not even quite advanced, but the most I've ever benched was 320, which was very advanced for my weight class and like like probably 20 pounds away from being elite for my weight class at the time. So the best part of weightlifting is like muscle memory. Like you can regain your strength like exponentially faster than you gained it the first time. Like I think like in
Oh,
a tenth of the
interesting.
time on average. Yeah. So if you are very strong and then I wouldn't advise people just to stop just because you might not get the habit back. But when you do get back to it, you gain that strength back so much quicker than you had it the first time. So sort of like I'm trying to work my way back up to some of those numbers and then do my first powerlifting meet at some point next year. Also, I don't know, just like keeping in touch with all of my friends from work and like all of my friends from organizing stuff and trying to like keep all those relationships. And it
Mm-hmm.
definitely is kind of cool being able to do it on my own schedule now.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other stuff that I'm doing that's just in terms of fun stuff. Like, I mean, music is like literally like that's my thing since before anything else. So I'm trying to get back into doing some of that stuff. That brings me a lot of joy. And I don't know what else I was thinking. That's all I can think of right now. But I'm a person who has like a lot of different interests and hobbies and stuff. So like, there's a lot of things that I'm able to still do that I'm enjoying. It's not just doom and gloom, sad time,
Okay.
after being fired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously looking for jobs
Mm-hmm.
in labor in particular, and I'm focusing on all of those things as well. So it is what it is. It's it'll be cool to have like to get hired somewhere. So like
Mm-hmm.
I feel that sense of stability, but I know that it's gonna feel really weird after being used to having like complete control over my schedule.
Mm.
Because even when I was working less hours at Trader Joe's and like doing more days where it was just strictly Trader Joe's United stuff,
Mm-hmm.
having the ability to have complete control over my schedule and like still be productive but like on my own terms, and not have to be in a store where my bosses are barking orders or whatever. Never necessarily barking orders, but where like every single thing that you do that day is pretty much just determined by whatever they feel like having you do. There is a level of freedom that I'm gonna miss once I'm working again. But that's life. This is capitalism. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I can't. I mean, that's like you said it. You said it. And I'm just
It's like
curious. I'm just personally
you live
curious.
with it or do a revolution. It's one of the two.
I hope that your job search is fruitful, and yeah, I look forward to hearing from you about what you do next.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And
Thank you.
anybody listening, hire me. And if anybody wants like more information about like different things that happened, the Instagram is at Jamie Edwards _TJU, and that like talks more in depth. And I'll be posting on there more about like just more labor related things too. So if anybody wants to know about any of that. All right. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've been listening to Moment of Truth. I've been your host, Meilin Obinata. I want to thank our program manager, Howard Feldstein, our engineer, Nyako Nyasu, Amy Chen Mills, Todd Zimmerman, Joy Schendeldecker, and other people on the Moment of Truth team, as well as all volunteers and staff at KSQD. So remember, get organized, get salty, and from the Moment of Truth team, I would say if you don't use your democracy, you're going to lose your democracy. So thanks everybody for listening, and channel into your own worker consciousness.